First one is about us. So, and I think it's important. Okay. Oh, wow. Yes, it works. Okay, so in my case, to be honest, one day before enrolling in the School of Architecture, I was one day before, the night before, almost. Expecting a fight, or was expecting kind of was like okay with me, like that I wanted to become an architect because he was thinking of these. But sorry, guys, but Mies is dead. The beginning of our story, the different story that we didn't expect. I wanted to, I mean, I was reluctant to put like game over because it's not game over. Party was over. So we finished fight to get our degree. And then 2011, Barcelona, the amount of work College of Architects relates at the end of the year at a loss of 85%. 0.5, 85%. Now, this is how we started. We started in the beginning. Nothing, like a no man's land of architecture. Expectations as architects. It's the project on the left. Final thesis, one of the partners' final thesis. Super like intellectual project about a library built with 6 or 7 but with super high standards in terms of public buildings like the new Peter Thumter. This was what was our expectations. So then, when we started working, we found that our only option was retail, commercial, being like shops and interior design. But then, if you see the project on the right, hanging the products in a store that we designed, you could see that our way of like designing was very architectural. So you see a hanger that it's made of a beam that was 11 meters. For us to explain that the goods that were hanging were so important that it was not like a subtle thing to hang them. It was something like massive. Right? How the beam then it's like hanging again from the steel beam. It's also extremely design. This is the kind of projects that we started doing, like minimal, but with passion. So we were doing everything and trying to rethink the structure of concept designing of any project. So in 2011, Is better? Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, because we didn't have any projects here, right? But for the recording, it's going to be like, wow. Okay, whatever. So, because we didn't have any projects, we decided to jump into a competition. And I don't know if you are aware of the Europan competition, which is probably the most prestigious urban planning competition in Europe. This is for young architects below the age of 40. And we selected Dubrovnik in Croatia. It was a project to transform
Is one working better, like all the time? Is it working all the time?
Okay, can I have you? Okay. Okay. So we are in Croatia. So we decided to do a competition because it was 5 partners. We haven't worked before together and we didn't have any commission. So our option to access to the kind of project that we wanted to do was this competition. If you know Dubrovnik, the old town, it's like a super like beautiful heritage city that it's UNESCO protected, but it's about to die of success as Venice. There's something called like the syndrome of Venice, which means that you have so much tourism that the local citizens, they just move. They cannot live there because everything is about souvenirs and about gelato, and you don't have parking, you don't have kindergartens, you cannot live as a citizen. So the competition was arranged by the city municipality, and it's so it was this parking plot that was behind of the walls. The walls are the ones that are like UNESCO protected, and this plot was meant to put here everything that was needed for the city, like 5 stories of parking underneath, 5 stories of like retail, housing, and restaurants on top of that. So it was a massive building, but that was the brief. And because we were young and we didn't know how important the rules are, we decided like, come on, this is wrong. We are not going to follow this brief. And we did the most stupid thing you can do if you ever have a client, which is to design something that you think that it's amazing, but in another plot. So if it's like if you get like a commission to build a house, and then in your first meeting you go to the client and you show like a model of like a beautiful house in a plot that it's 1 kilometer away. Right? So this is the best way to lose the competition. But we were just like trying to work together, and we thought this was the good answer to the city. The city has 3 entrances in the old walls, so we decided to split the brief in the program into like 3 different like plazas, and then even how we design, how we drawing is extremely important in our studio. Even how we draw this, you cannot tell the difference of what was existing and what's our project. Our project is already here. These buildings, that they have the same kind of drawing as the public buildings inside, it was our project. So it was a bunch of buildings connected through a promenade, and this promenade was allowing to really see the walls of the city and make like a walk outside. So we thought this was the best way to give back that space to the citizens. Back to Citizens was a claim that we invented for the competition that was playing with the words that these had been in the back of the city for many years, and this was the time to give it back to the citizens. it was such a successful claim that the mayor took it. He stole this claim from us for his politician campaign. But the good news was that we did this project with this library, but all these storefronts here of like retail, restaurants, and housing on top. And then there was an investor that was the owner of those plots that said like, oh, if this is the project, then I'm interested. Because if you work in retail, if you do like a squarish thing, you get like little storefronts. If you do like a promenade, you have much more GLA, like retail space, but also much more exposed facade. So what we thought that was our more intellectual project, because we were talking about back to citizens, we were talking about a project for UNESCO, it was World Heritage, but suddenly we were successful because what we didn't like to do, which is retail. So our project was the perfect balance between something that was extremely good for the city, extremely good for the architects. We were invited to the College of Architects to give a lecture just right when we finished the school. We were in Vienna doing a lecture. But this project was successful because we understood what was needed for the project, what was needed for the client, and what was good as a result. So this was our first surprise of this idea of the unexpected story. The second unexpected story was again like it was not a sad story, but we had a meeting with a friend, one of Benjamin's friend, that was one of our former professors. And we were asking him about our name and how should we start, whatever. And we wanted his advice because he has like an MBA, master degree in business or whatever. And so we said like, oh, should we be like a studio, an atelier, like a lab, or? And he said like, are you stupid? We're not anything of that. We're a company. We're SLP means like a limited company, like a, how do you say that? Well, this is the acronym when you start like a company, like a legal company. So for us, this was a way to understand that we had been designing and creating in our mind an idea of an architect, but this architect was in the need of making money and was in the need of creating like a company to hire people and to be able to build things. So this was what we expected to be when we were in the School of Architecture, and we still do this. This is like a current, like a drawing. It's one of Benjamin's drawing, in fact. And we do this, but we weren't expecting this. Now this is our new offices. Old picture, so it's still under construction, but we have software to control our processes. We do meetings every morning to control how many hours are we spending in the projects. We control the calendars, we control the budget. So this was totally opposite to what I wanted to do, but it's needed. Projects. So if you want to do good design and then you fail in organizing yourself in your own company, you're not going to be successful. Now, I'm sorry to give you the bad news, but you need to do that. Or you enroll to someone else's company that is already established, and then you team up with them. We have like a super good team. We're now 21 people. But if you want to start your own, then think about this. Also, and I will go fast with these, but being in Spain, I think, is the best decision you've made in terms of like your education. Schools of architecture and schools in design in Spain are extremely well prestigious because we have like an approach to projects and to design which is not common. Everything in the world is about a specialization. And we're giving, in Spain, an education which is more holistic. It's more about the wide idea. And you will see how important this was for us, because this is one of our projects. This is what you expect from an architect, right? This is a competition that we didn't win. It was like an honorable mention. We didn't win. It was like 140 teams competing for one library here in Barcelona. That this is what you expect from an architect. But this is also our work. And this is a mix of like, I don't know, in the beginning, we were even like ashamed of like explaining the projects we were doing in commercial centers. Because we work in commercial centers and we do amazing designs that transform people experiences through landscape, through furniture, through signage. I mean, design, the most like close design as signage. So this is one of our projects that we've done in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. We opened an office in Saudi. Now this office is not functional as an office. We are doing the projects from Barcelona because we think that our strength is the concept, and the concept can be handled here. There's no need of doing it like over there. But this is like an example of when you talk about these kind of like private enclosures, or how was the name of the everything stands for that description. So we're going to show later the way we design, and you will see that it can be applied to the traditional library, to a lagoon that is going to be the leisure whatever, or this, which is the food court of a commercial center, 7,000 square meters, that was like so lame in the beginning, and now it looks like an urban or like green experience. They don't have the option of having like life outside the buildings because of the weather and because many other things. So we're doing urban planning, but it's not urban planning. It's interior design, but it's not interior design. It's retail. So at the end, what is this? We don't know, but we do good design. For example, I don't know why, but we suddenly got a commission to designing like a truck, those trucks that they follow the competition of like motorcycles. This is for the International Federation of Motorcycle, and it's a motorhome. It goes to any racing circuit, and it's the home base for the directors of these institution. So normally this is related to like speed and like automobile. So everything is in fiber carbon, everything is like glass and shiny. And we decided to do like a totally different approach. So it's still a truck, but we did interior design. And I don't have the image, well, whatever. So the interior of this truck that transforms, you know, these kind of things that they open and they create like a new space. The most amazing thing of the space was that it was like comfortable and cozy and homey. And it was the only one in the racings that was like comfortable to have like a conversation, because all the others, they were designed to impress. This one was designed to use and to be friendly and to be like human scale. So all these lessons have also influenced the way we design in architecture. So because we've been doing these other things that probably 10 years ago we would say like, no, this is not architecture. An architect shouldn't do this. This is not a work for the architect. Now, for example, this is a housing unit, a housing building that has like 54 units or something like that. Then we want to design spaces that transform and they better people's life, for sure. But who is paying us is a developer. And what he wants is to make like a profit of that, for sure. So he has the same goals. He wants to make like a change in life, whatever, but he wants to make money. So this space that normally is a corridor and goes in the middle of the buildings and is a space that the developer cannot charge to anyone. It has no value. So normally the corridors are the smaller, the better. We decided to put it in the front and add these terraces and these double spaces. So this became like a more communal space. So suddenly, because we knew that if we didn't do something that had like a specific use that the developer could offer to the clients, he would say no. We created this, for us, like amazing space that it's aligned with this idea of people of like having and sharing, co-working, co-living, whatsoever. So this corridor now is the place where they can relate. So this is an influence in our architecture that working in the dark side of the profession, like the one that is related to retail or to business-wise, it's also extremely good for our design. This is a project, probably the scale of the ones they're going to use. This is in Born district. This looks super nice, but the good thing and the amazing part is that this is something that we won't do again. We just check the box. This was done from the first meeting to the final of the project in barely 2 months and a half. Like if it was like a shop and it's housing. So they were in the search of an architect that could deliver and could understand that of course it was about doing like an extremely good design, but if it was not delivered for Christmas time in which tourists would rent it, they were not interested. And normally the architect and the designer fails to accomplish these like goals of calendars. So this is the second part of this Mesura introduction. We got in an interview from, I don't know, from the UK or whatever, they were asking us, what do you carry in your pockets? And we were thinking about to be like clever and hipster and say like, oh no, we have these or a camera. Or, no. We do carry in our pockets its values. From this crisis, that the crisis began because the architect and the designer was not interested in making good projects, but making good profits. We had these like incredible crises that transform the way we understand the profession now. So we have understood some things from that we want to share with you, because I think this is probably the key of our success. So we are really good architects, but there's plenty of good architects in Barcelona. There's plenty of good designers in the world. So I think that these crises added us a new layer, which is these values that we want to share. First one, it's something that you don't, probably we don't encourage enough in the schools, and this is a message. The first row, we didn't learn in the school to work in a group. So I think master degrees are much more into working in group, and I've been teaching also in master degrees, and it's always a fight. And there's always a group that splits, and there's always a group that says, no, I want to change because we don't. We were 5, all men, all high egos, high expectations, working together, no job, no money. Imagine. It was an disaster announced in the first day. Everyone was saying, don't do that. You're 5, there's no job. Don't start a company now with 5 people. Go away, go to Germany, there's a lot of job. Probably 80% or 70% of our friends that we study together, they left Barcelona. And we decided to start a project, which is Mesura, and I think this is the project that we are more proud, more than the ones that we're going to show later. Yes, the idea of like working together, the collaborative part of design, this is something that I cannot explain. You need to test it, you need to fail, and you need to fail again, and you need to fail again, and then you will learn to work with other people and to add design values together. So it's not, in the beginning we were trying to see who had the best idea. So it was a discussion of what of the 5 ideas was the one to choose, not how to combine the ideas. So this is the lesson that you should learn working in this master. The second one, we call it a new view of the past. So yes, traditions are important for architect and design. Yeah, this is not about this. This was more about the legacy that you find, not because past is always something that we need to like adore. There was no money. So this is a project that we will show in the third part. So we'll close the lecture with this one. But I want to advance you that this project that was kind of like a mix of different houses from different times and kind of like a super difficult layout to put together. If you see the strategy at the end, we did many things, but the strong concept is this. It's only this. So all the other spaces surrounding this corridor were kind of like sewed together with this new piece, and that's the idea of the project. And it's not that it's subtle and super intellectual, it's cheap. And it's making the other parts work in conjunction. So the good thing about this project, it's probably the cost efficiency of this super strong idea. We'll have this project later. Economy of means is what I was like talking about, but it's not only that you don't have much of a budget, it's an attitude. This project is probably one of the most published that we've had. We've got like awards from all over the world. This has been published in books in China and in places that we don't know how the hell this happened, but this went viral. This project was a success. And it's a swimming pool. It's a landscape project in a castle, but at the end, the design of it, the piece that we designed, it's in the brief, it was a swimming pool. But this is the result. And the result, it's an amazing swimming pool carved in the stone, massive stone, that it's kind of like luxurious in the way it's put together, and it gets this atmosphere that everyone was appreciating when we finished. So this has been successful because of the design, and everyone thinks that it was an extremely expensive project. Of course, this was not cheap, but in the beginning, because we were coming from this idea of the architects, and the architect knows the truth, and God sees everything in the details, we designed these pieces in like massive stone, right? So every stone is around, I don't know, like 50 kilos, 80 kilos. I mean, it's like insane. No one would do that for a swimming pool, like a private swimming pool, because it's so expensive. You would put something that it's finished with this stone, not the real stone. But we talked to the client, and and we said like, no, this is the truth of the material. You want to have the full piece of marble. You don't want to pretend it's marble. And the client said like, okay, yeah, you have these like super nice ideas, but I'm not going to pay for your expectations. I have my budget, and I'm not going to design something, pay for something that is just for your ego, that you want to know that the pieces are bold. But we're stubborn, and that's a quality that you should have also. When you have an idea and you believe in the idea, you need to push for it. So we went in a research to all the quarries in Catalonia and anywhere. And then we found a place that they had like a leftover of, I don't know how many pieces of these blocks already cut. No one wants pieces of stone that they are already cut in a specific size, because you want your own size, your own pattern, whatever. It's impossible, almost impossible to use the leftover of these pieces. And we said, like, okay, this was offered to us extremely cheap, and we said, okay, the material is cheap, our ideas are going to be strong. So we design in a 1 meter per 1 meter pattern with these like letters that they remind of a poem or a song, you know, these A B A or A B C B A. You've heard this, how you start a song. So we arrange all the pieces one per one in order to have the specific layout that we wanted in the swimming pool for the price that the client wanted to have. And then when we finish, we told the story the other way around. And we said, like, no, this is a castle from the 9th century. So this new platform needs to be like a homage to this castle. So we created a poem with all these pieces that we cut in a specific shape to create this idea. So what was clever was the design, not the amount of money spent. Also, it's not only how do you sell the idea, but of course, this was extremely carefully designed in order to take the water outside. There are gargoyles everywhere. The mix of the concrete and the stone is beautifully joined. The result is super nice, of course. We were, and we still are, we love Carlos Carpa, and for us this was like an opportunity to do something similar. But the good part of the story is that we didn't make the client pay for our super nice idea of like being like Carlos Carpa. We did something that reminded of Carlos Carpa, but in the budget of the project. So again, it's being generous in the design. Your most valuable treasure is your design talent. So when you have a project that has little budget, it needs double the talent. Because when you have a lot of budget, you can do just a lazy design and it probably will work. But when you don't have like resources and you don't have means, then your design needs to be extremely clever. So this is another project that we did, and it all starts with these pieces of brick that, again, it looks like a trend, but we haven't done this again. This was a piece that was designed for us in this specific shape and measurements. I will explain the project later, so now I'm going to just like introduce this house. But this house looks kind of spectacular, but when you analyze what's the materials used here and what's here in the interior design, it's just nothing. Half empty, but it's beautiful in the design and the geometry. And I didn't know how to translate this one because it's kind of like a very Catalan or Spanish thing. It's like the family doctor. Something that also was good for us in the crisis is that our profession, designers and interior designers, architects, we were people to be avoided. If you didn't want your project to be double the price, triple the calendar, and just fulfilling the ideas of the architect and not the ideas or the needs of the client. And when we did our first project of the, our first series of projects, we saw that if you successfully complete the needs of the client, of course, you are in command of the project, but you need to respond to the needs of the client. Then the client will repeat. And then you get the relation of every time the client has a problem, it's going, like the family doctor is going to come to you. And that's something that happened before. When you study Le Corbusier, when you study Mies, well, Mies had some fights with some clients. But this is something that an architect should be. So your client should have trust in your work. So this trust, after doing that swimming pool, that landscape project for the castle, the client was in the need of like starting a much bigger challenge and much bigger endeavor, which was the refurbishing, complete restoration of the castle, which is heritage protected, like has like I don't know. We need archaeologists in the process of renewing the project, and we thought we were not going to be selected as architects because we were too young, too inexperienced, and our competitor was an architect that is like I don't know, one of the oldest and most like prestigious guy in restoration of like Catalan architecture. But the client wanted to restore the castle, and we said like, okay, and what are you going to do with it? Because it's a private, it's a property, it's not public. And they said like, no, we want to restore it because we need to do this investment, and then we will we will see how this castle works in order to the return on investment. And we said like, no, this is not how it works. So we offer them different layout options for the castle to be feasible, being like a wedding place, being like a place for events for, I don't know, Audi corporate presenting their new car or whatever, hosting a one-star Michelin restaurant, creating like a small boutique, Relais Chateau hotel. So we said that in the design process, we had to know what was going to be the outcome of the castle. Otherwise, we were only going to make it beautiful at an extremely high cost. So we won the trust of the client, and we got the commission, and we're doing the transformation. This is a part of the project that it's adding this small kind of like service area to support weddings in order to cook and have like an outside amazing space. And what we realized is that in the beginning we thought that the team was the one that was partnered in architecture. But now what we realize is that we partnered in architecture with the citizens, with the clients, with the users. So there's no point in doing like extremely good design if you don't have in view that this is human scale and it has a purpose, and then you are like starting like a goal or a project or a challenge in conjunction with who is hiring you. So now Partners in Architecture has become kind of like a motto that we team in order to create amazing solutions for the projects that we are commissioned. Okay, so this is Mesura. We wanted to explain a little bit of our background and our kind of like a values, we could say. We didn't start with the values. The values were carved into our minds because of the crisis. So you will be much more lucky than we were because now the crisis seems to be past. I'm not saying over, but past. But we were forced to have these values. Don't wait to be forced to have yours. So if you're starting a new project, just think, how do you want to work? Not only what do you want to design. Okay, so I have 3 different presentations. If you want, we can have a round of questions after the 3 presentations. The other ones are going to be like shorter than this one, or you can ask now. I don't know, whatever is more comfortable.
Make your computer.
Okay. So yeah, I think we'll be shorter so we can have like a little debate or conversation. Okay. Okay, so this is another project, the project of the house that I'm going to show you. Just for you to see, in the beginning, our ego was much bigger. You saw the other presentation, Mesura was just right in the middle, a little logo. Look at this one. And this is Casa IV, and it became known as Casa 4 because it looks like a 4. But it's not our fourth house, it's our first house. So the challenge was even bigger than if it has been the fourth house. So this is a lecture that we prepared for architecture students, second year studio, and I also show these to students from LA, fourth year, that they come to Barcelona for a semester. But both of them are to explain how strong is the importance of the context in the process of designing. So I want to apologize if the level of what's here is kind of like a under the expectations of the master degree, because this is explained in a way to the students from LA or the second year students to understand what's the context about, right? So when we studied, we had these kind of like three approaches in the design process. Some schools, and I mean schools, not the physical building, but schools in the way of like how do you design? They think that design comes from a concept. Of course, it comes from a concept, but how do you create this concept? So some modern approaches are like, no, you just like have this intuition, and then you start like working the intuition, and then you create the idea. That's an extremely valuable process. We don't follow that one. We follow the other one, which is building the concept. The first one is you have a concept and then you test it. The other one is you research the project for like intuitions and you collage them until you create an idea. So in this process, we have the understanding, which is probably a connection between the senses and the plot. So you go to the plot and you smell it, you listen to it. Is there wind? Is there noise of the trees? Whatever. So this is the first like super like first approach. The second one, the testing strategies, it's a connection between the mind and the hand, because it's when you draw. And you've seen our offices, we have everything Apple, everything iPad Pros with pencils, everything like technological, but at the end of the day, the connection between the mind goes with the pencil. So you need to draw. At least this is how we do. This is our design process. And the third part is when to jump into the computer. And not because it's a computer, it's because you need to test that these sketches that you have, they make sense and they fit. Because sometimes you have these ideas of a sketch and then you put it in the paper and you put it in proportion and it doesn't work. So it's the third one, the validation of your ideas. So this was a project located in close to Elche, nearby Valencia, for you who are from abroad. And it's kind of like a unique location. This is like a kind of like super famous, like a garden of palms, which is also like protected in Elche. And well, this was to set the mood of where we are and kind of the atmosphere that we're dealing with. And this is our first model. So this is not so far away to your school days, right? So we just finished the school. We were behaving like students doing a model for the first creed or the first pin-up. This is our test of the location. And it's a house, a family house, that works specifically in summer but could work during all the year. But normally these developments were done in a way that they were like plots, and the urban planning was not very careful. It was just like a subdivision of plots, and then people using the plot, the architect was just like, okay, how big do you want the house? And the house was in the middle. So the house itself it's not unsuccessful. So the owners, they are very proud and they very fond of their house. But for us, the location of the building was kind of jeopardizing any opportunity to have like identity or to have like differentiation of spaces, because it's right in the middle. This is the house. We are not showing the house because it's not as important now as the context and the surroundings and the trees that are here. Because for us it was important to understand climate, sun insolation, weather, and these kind of like tactile or texture and even like wind condition of the location, and the shades and the sun filter into the trees. So in terms of the project, we call it Casa IV. So it's Casa 4, so it's not 4 and it's not a casa. It's a guest house. It's an addition to the existing house. So the owners, this is a porch, and they said like, oh, this is the most successful part of the house, but it's too small, because when we have the family over and friends, and then everyone here, everyone wants to be here watching the swimming pool, but then protected from the sun and having like a vermouth or a beer, during the weekend, and this is too small. So first thing, we need a porch. Second thing, we need a guest house, because we have friends staying. This is disconnected from everywhere, so they cannot go to a hotel. So when they are like coming over, they need to have like a guest space. So when we are saying that this idea of like partners in architecture and like working together with the client, whatever, it's true that you need to understand the client, but you are in command of the decisions of design. He's in command of saying what's wrong, what's needed, what's his expectations. But as when you go to the doctor, you explain your problems, and the doctor is not expecting you to then say like, okay, then I need surgery, right? So here, in the beginning, the client was saying like, I need a porch because I want more shadow. I need like a guest house because I need another room. So the project needs to be here and here. And we said like, no, wrong. This is what you think, that this is the result of the problem. We will analyze where the problem should be resolved. So this is a true picture. We always start like sketching with tracing paper, and we were testing like many options in exploration about what's the best solution. So we started from scratch, analyzing the conditions of a patio house, because it has like super good shadow conditions. The idea of like, I don't know, you for sure seen like projects by Sana, this idea of like different pavilions and this space in the middle, these intermediate spaces that we also liked. Well, exploration of options, always with shadow in our mind and having like shelter. And each one of them, like in the school, was tested into a model, and then we were analyzing what was the result. Then also, of course, this is done by computer, but we are not yet in the stage of like really making the final testing. But as an exploration, we were doing like renderings. Like for us, we work a lot with renderings. You've seen, if you watch our projects, you will see that we have like super nice renderings, but because we use them in-house, we do renderings during all the process to understand how the project is reacting to our decisions and models. Then we were discussing the projects because we tried to discuss between the team what are the good options, and all of them were kind of satisfying the problematic of the client. But again, this idea of like being partners, don't take it like too strong. You need to have like a strong idea. Your concept needs to be bold and needs to be in a way that when you explain it to the client, there's no way something can be changed because it's so cohesive. And these projects, they were so kind of like random additions of things that they kind of worked, but just that. So we said this is not a Mesura project, or at least Mesura was not even created. This was the first house, this was the beginning, but this is not how we want to do architecture. So we did this. That in terms of graphic, it's too much. The client didn't understand a thing because it's a plan together with an elevation in the same drawing. So this wall here, it's the wall in horizontal, but also in section. The modular, of course, and this is all done in proportion of the golden ratio. Well, this is absolutely the kind of architectural projects that we thought we were going to do when we were studying. But this, we managed to make it work. So this is the model. This one is not like a process model, of course. This is the final model that we were happy about the result, and the client also was willing to have a model that we did. The whole idea of the project was creating two conditions. One condition is going to be this one, because you will see in the pictures that there's a tennis court over here. So there's going to be noise, people playing, whatever. And there are some neighbors here that they are not so nice. So you don't want to be in relation with them. And also in terms of like a sun to the west and whatever, this was a good condition to have like a separation. So this is a wall. But in the other side, here goes the swimming pool, this is the house, this is south. So this is the best part of the house. So you want this new pavilion to be related to this space. So how do you want this pavilion to be related? Completely. And we said completely, no pillars. So when we say strong decisions, strong concepts, this is a beam of 17 meters. First house had a beam that could be a bridge. Right? But you will see that this idea of having this super big beam was not to fulfill our ego on making like a cantilever building that's nothing for the people, but to create some conditions underneath that I think you will appreciate. So defining, this is the last part, and this means that all these ideas and intuitions and illusions, they need to be tested and they need to be drawn properly in plans, calculations, whatever. And our first decision also was that this was going to be like a minimal project. So it was going to be like concrete, and it was going to be brick and glass and probably nothing else. And we wanted the design to be like super important, and the geometry. So because this is the piece, and from the piece we're building the whole. You know, or probably you know, that when you work in brick, when you arrive to the corner, you normally have a special piece, or you break one of the bricks to make the turn, right? We didn't want that. Also, when you work with walls, and then you have like big loads of weight in the roof, these walls, they have like a wider spaces to allocate the extra strength needed. And this, in terms of geometry, we didn't like it. We didn't want it. So we designed a piece because it was convenient. Because of the crisis, we got this opportunity that the brick maker could do at the same price, or barely the same thing, and a specific brick or the normal one. So we chose the specific one. And why specific? Just because it's different? No, because these had the exact dimensions not to break a piece during the whole construction. I mean, you can break a piece by accident, but in terms of design, it was not needed to make a special piece. So this is the layout. Well, it's not the important thing now, but this was the porch. So we said, you want a big porch? This is your new porch. So these two bolts are in fact the porch, but because we don't have pillars and these windows, they can open, this space can be also combined to having like a 3 bolted space for the porch. And when over here is the guest room that has its own privacy. But see, in terms of hierarchy, how these work. It's only these 4 walls, and then everything else needed, like service spaces, they go into packages. And these that you see here is a toilet, but it gets inside a cabin. So when you open it, you can use this corridor as part of it, so you don't have like useless spaces. Because when you have the bathroom closed, you can use it as a corridor, but when you open the doors and you close this space, it becomes part of the bathroom, right? And then it was about the bolts and these 4 walls to support. Also, another condition that I didn't mention is that in terms of regulations, we didn't know in the first attempts. So when you test the idea, sometimes things happen like this one, that we were willing to do a detached guest house. But legally, if you make like a detached thing, it's not a guest house, it's a new house. So it needs to be connected. So you will see how we reacted in the testing part to still have the idea that these 2 projects are kind of like, can be autonomous, but they are connected. So here you have a more clear view of the strategy. You can tell even in the way we draw the layouts, how strong we want to explain about this is about pieces. So it's not only like a wall that we are so strong committed to this wall that it's black. No. It's made out of every piece. Flooring also. And then it's of course about the bolts. The bolts here for us, there are like many reminiscences of these in our kind of like a tradition. We have bonnet for sure in our minds, but this part of the project, this idea of the bolt, it came through the process that we wanted to have this guest house in this specific shape, but we wanted to have a condition of shelter that in some points needed 2.10 of height. So the client was like, no, I don't want a 2.10 height in my guest house. And we were trying to convince him that Coderc had like an amazing project at 2.10 that we wanted to have. So the consensus in the design process and for the user to use this space was that with the bolt, you could still have at some point this idea of 210 that you will see in the pictures that we wanted to frame the views, but also the condition of fresh air that the bolt, because it has this like increasing height, could have. Also because this idea of like rhythm, we could have like different packages, the guest part, the living room that could be open, and the two modules for the porch. Then, well, here is a more technical drawing, of course. The bolt is extremely good for like taking the water outside the roof. That seems like an obvious thing, but in architecture, one of the most difficult things to do is not to cover something. To cover something is pretty easy. Anything can be done in terms of a structure if you have the money. But to have the water like going out of your building normally goes because of geometry, not because of money. So the idea of the bolt and then the water coming in these canals, that it's part of the geometry. So we are not adding a canal. The bolt, it's adding in its own design the canal for the water. And the same thing for the pillars. When you have these things that they go in the weighting on top of the wall, if you don't reinforce these walls with like an extra wide or an extra pillar, then it's going to break, for sure. So it's not an opinion. You have like a pressure in a linear part, continuous, so it's going to break. So you need a reinforcement. So the idea of like making these cavity of two walls of brick that inside they are empty was good for isolation, ventilation, weather-wise, but also it allowed us that at some point it could be reinforced with concrete and steel to make it work as a pillar, but not being apparent in the final design because the wall is going to be continuous. So this is how it works. You have these spaces that can be like empty, or these spaces that when needed, they can be filled with concrete and then with steel bars to reinforce it, and then they become like pillars embedded in the wall. Also, this idea here was to cast the beam that it's needed to finally join together the whole building. I don't know the name in English. There's this tuncho, this kind of, it's a beam that is, it works as a belt, and the idea of the beam is to connect all the walls together so it becomes like more stable. And this was this. We of course had to calculate the whole thing, and this is the image. This is the tennis court, and this part of the project that we wanted to seclude a little bit so it gets the privacy, but it's also beautiful at some point. So you are not making a wall to the neighbors, but you are doing. You have the wall, but you have like a nice, beautiful own elevation. This is the part that especially in this picture, it looks like a different territory, because this is kind of the apartment of the guest house. This room that it's on the upper part of the guest house, of the extension, that has its own wall. And if you see the layout and the plans, it looks so minimal, but look how rich and how private this looks, right? And this also is the beam, and this is that idea of how the beam rests on top of the wall. And this is the image that probably summarizes the project, because you can have these one and two spaces for the porch, and then an extra one. This looks like a pillar, but if you look carefully, it's the windows that they can be like moved, and they can incorporate all this space into exterior. And you can see this beam here. This beam here, it's connecting the 4 bolts. So the 4 bolts, they rest on top of the wall here, and then here, because you don't have any wall to support, they are here connected to the wall, to the beam, and then the beam is transporting this weight linearly to the so this beam has exactly the same height as the bolt. It's 140. So when we designed the beam and we had to do the calculations, and we had for sure a consultant, because we are not so consultant to reassure that we were doing this correctly, we said we don't know what's the reinforcement, how many steel bars, what kind of caliber do we need for the concrete, but what we know, what it's fixed, is that it needs to be 140, because we want it to be exactly the arch of the bolt. And as we were saying before, this idea of economy of means, or like making like an abundancy of design when you don't have many resources or budget. If you see these, concrete, this is super expensive, super like cheap, and then even these was put like extremely carefully designed on top of the bricks. The only thing that was expensive, but we thought it was needed, was to use wood in the windows. The part that connects with the other house is right here. So in the beginning, we were designing with this window. I mean, this window now it's passing on top of like a brick wall. So we were doing the design in the opposite way, because it was working better for the layout. I mean, having these fixed and this one open and but in terms of like understanding that the building is not touching the other one, putting the window here work in a much better way. That it's of course connected legally. We can say that the two buildings are connected, but in fact they can work completely secluded. So you can see here that this is the brick part. That in fact for us was probably better to use it here and then put these one transparent here. But in order to explain that these two buildings are connected but they are not, we put the glass here, and then they joined here to get the water. It's like little under, so you create the idea of a shadow, and then this shadow also reinforces the idea that this building it's just touching. They're not connected. In fact, they are connected. And I think this is the final one. So the lesson of this building is that we can sketch in a paper, plan and elevation in 2 drawings, and all the project is explained. This is when your projects have like a bold concept. We've heard this before from any professor during our studies, that if a concept is strong enough, you can sketch it in a little paper, in a bar. It's true. When you have an idea that it's strong enough, you are able to make just a sketch about it. Okay. Now we'll pass to Benjamin. He will explain the last one.
To everyone, 15 minutes, but can only explain this in 2 hours. Is it okay for you? 2 hours more? So for me, I'm very happy to be here today, part of that, because ELISAVA for me, and I think for us, is a special place, because my brother used to study graphic design here in ELISAVA, and I'm telling you this because in our first days in Mesura, he gave us or explained us the ability to use graphic design in our projects, which we think has helped us a lot in many ways. And we brought like an example of it, like this project that we're going to show now is an interior design. But we always show the client our projects in books. And this book, which I'll pass you now, comes from the heritage of all that my brother gave us in from the first day at Mesura. So that's why I think it's a good thing. So. Like a document that we show to the client, and it's always better because the client is more impressed from the beginning. So it's a clever way of making that the client likes the project. So this is Kanyimona, and it's a project about respect, and respect in many ways. The values that Jaime told you for us. It's like if we began as an architect to do big buildings or whatever, I think that what we learn is to respect things from the past and understand them and make them your friends. Not just begin from zero, but respecting what you see. And this is all came because of low budgets, small projects, interior design, which we are architect and we do a lot of interior design, and interior design for us has gave us the opportunity to respect the building that we're working on. So respect is a very important word for us, and especially in this project. It's based in Alella. It's 15 kilometers from Barcelona, and it's an amazing place. And that's all. The project is just understanding the brilliant space that we found. It's a combination of 3 buildings. The first one was a cottage for a farmhouse that was built in 1778, and the next step was in 1909. Well, it's supposed to be. This is not okay. Typical way of design from here in Catalonia. And then in 1992 they did an interior design of the whole project. So it has 3 phases, and for us this is very important because the 3 of them are brilliant for us. So working on a place that has 3 different kinds of architecture is a gift for us to just understand it, and from there respecting it and design from there. So I will explain you the project from 3 points that are important. First is the brief, the second one is the system, and the third one is the atmosphere. In the brief, of course we had this well, this is the first reunion we had with the client, where they told us what they needed. Before designing, it's very important to understand what the client wants. And the first thing we do always is to really understand with sketches what they are trying to tell us where they want to live. And this is the house that we found, and the place was just brilliant. But of course, it didn't respond to the new uses that the client wanted. So what the client wanted was a big master bedroom. It's a couple of 60 years old, and they live by their own now, and they really wanted this house to have a big master bedroom. So right now the master bedroom was the red area is where you sleep, the blue is the bathroom, and the green is where where you get the closet. So that was very small. So we had to change the project, the space, because the needs were different. So the first thing we did was to say, okay, the best place is the modernist house, this one in the right, and the left is the cottage. Let's put the room at the very edge because it's the best space. So let's put the room over there. Also, the client told us to. It's the same case that Jaime was explaining you about the house. The client said, okay, we need like a big porch here, and we need a new room here. So let's do it like this. So the client told us, these are the best spaces for a new master bedroom, and we said, okay, there are good spaces, but the connection between the bathroom and the closet and the you had to pass through the public space in the house. So that was not okay for us. So the first decision was telling the client, okay, you had a good idea, but we think this is better. We think it's better to put the three parts together, and even if that means that one of the parts it's in the old house. I don't know if you understand. ¿Cómo el puntero cómo es? This here is the cottage, and this is the modernist house. So this is important because they wanted all the good spaces in the modernist house, and we were like, no, it's okay. We can use both parts. Then we went over and over and well, this is just like playing with different ways of how this master bedroom could be. But what's important about this is the first discussion with the client, like first of designing, like talking with him, what are the best solutions for his master bedroom, and from there, just to explain you the briefing. The blue areas are the night areas with the bedrooms, and the red areas are like the living areas. So when we have already like thought with the client what is the best distribution for his house, we always like to think in a system for design. This is like a way for us to make it easy. Like okay, we think that this project with this system we will resolve of the problems that we have, and that's the way that I think that maybe in our interior designs you can notice that we are like kind of architect minded. Like we like to define all the project with one solution, with one decision. So this is basically what we did with this project. We basically decided that the whole project, and that Jaime told you before, could be resolved with this piece here, which is an element that connects the two buildings that we had, and that also just with this piece you could do the separation of spaces. So how does this system work, or how does this system become to be like it is? Like first of all, we understand the structure of the house that we're living, and this was very interesting because the cottage house had like we call it a swastika way of like in the plan, like is the form. It's like 4 spaces, but then the modernist house, the structure is totally different. You have like these transversal spaces, and the other one has 4 spaces. So one of the things that this system wants to do is to connect these different structures in this like red area here, which also is doing like separation of the living area, the sleeping area. So it's making like few things. It's connecting like the 2 different structures that we find, and it's also making a solution for the briefing that we designed with the client. And from there on, we wanted to go like further on from what we saw, because understanding, I think, is very important in interior design, understanding the structure of the space that we are having, because this modernist house gave us the opportunity to make really long transversal connections, which they didn't have before. So this piece system that we're doing is not only a barrier, but it's also a system that can make open and give new opportunities of space to the house. And also this, Jaime showed you before, like this is what we like with our designs. Like with one solution, you gave you do all the project. So here's the plan with a little bit more of detail. This is also important for us because it's not only that the drawing might be might like it or not. Is what you are trying to explain with this graphic way of drawing. Like it's important for us here to explain always the structure. Like so we are very carefully drawing like the real way that they did these walls, all these stones and bricks. So it's important for us to show the different ways, so you can see, just with this drawing, that the walls here in the old cottage are a lot bigger than the ones in the modernist house. So this for us is important, like understanding the structure that we find and see what opportunities this is giving us. Because as I told you before, here there's no chance to connect in these two spaces, but here there's a chance to connect in all this space. That's why for us it's important to first understand the structure. And there's another concept for us that is quite important, which I think we learned from Peter Zumthor, is like the atmospheres that you want in architecture. Like I think it's not only like having like a rational design. It's about making a space that you like to feel comfortable. And that's the thing that we also think that thanks to doing a lot of internal design, that value, I think that we learn it. Like learn to be comfortable in a space and not just doing like a big building with a good facade. No, like the interior space is very important for us. And well, this is just the decision of what materials we were using. Also, again, the respect, like the three materials that this house had was like wood, it was stone, and then also like painting. Like and for us, painting is an issue because as an architect, you never design with painting. Like this is just a color. But now, after doing all this interior design, like how you paint a wall, it's a part of the project that we never thought we were going to use as architect, and for now, it's very important for us. So this is just a combination about how the house is right now and what the project is going to be, in order to show you like the idea that we have of respect. Here you can see this is the old cottage, and this is the modernist house. And this has this special thing that I haven't explained, that the modernist house has really tall ceiling, and it connects to two floors in the cottage. So in the same height that the modernist house has, we have two floors for the old cottage. Well, of course, the facade is beautiful. Why should you do something in the facade? It's just about little details like furniture or stuff, but like the image is the same. Like if you find a lovely building, just respect it and don't try to put many things on it. And also, this is the what's right now in the it's an ongoing project. This image is nice because you're seeing the modernist original house, but also the intervention of 1992, which it was also a really clever intervention for us, because not only it made like some more open spaces, but this decision of again this like 220 high, which we think is very human scale for living, like it connected all the house with this element here that had also like the doors and the wardrobes, the storage. So we thought that was a really clever decision that we also wanted to maintain. So this is the proposal, which, as I said, like it maintains like the original state, like the modernist house with the radiators, and maintains also the idea of this 220 high. But we analyzed this image, and for us it was too cold. So cold, I don't know if cold is the word, like a hospital. I don't know how to say it. So we thought that it would be okay to make it a little bit more cozy. So that's why, like, the only intervention maybe here from the other image is that from this 220 high, like we put this wood in the walls. But then here is what we think it's where we make the difference, or where we put a new element by understanding that this structure can connect these two spaces. It's not an structure wall here that we found. Like this is that wall here is not structure, so you can play with this. So we do these big doors so that you connect these two spaces. And here's what I was telling you about painting. Like, yeah, painting for us now is not also because the original modernist house painted the walls, but it's not painted. It's like Venice stucco. Do you understand? Like a stucco, like in the original modernist house, all the walls were with the stucco. So we wanted to put that again, and also with an intention. Like if we do it like this, like when you pass this system that we made, when you pass to the other space, you have like a different atmosphere. And also this, I think it's interesting to show you this, because the decision of the painting, the client wanted all the walls white, so we did the project like this, but we were convinced that the other proposal was better. But of course, you have to speak with the client and try to convince him, which they did prefer this one. But this is interesting because only with the painting, it's very different space. And this is the kitchen, which right now is a brilliant kitchen, but the client wanted like a bigger kitchen, more open, and also with you call it like island system, like una isla. So they wanted to cook, which is better, because in this kitchen, when you're cooking, you're looking to a wall. But in the new proposal, when you're cooking, you have the possibility to look to this space here and also look into the window. But again, it's an image of respect, like. And this is the only part of the project that maybe is a little bit different, because they wanted like an indoor swimming pool. So here, as we wanted to do like maybe something a little bit different, because well, it's always nice also to be a little bit to put risk, and maybe we call it like throw yourself to a swimming pool. Maybe you get it wrong, but it doesn't matter. You have to try. Like making mistakes is what really makes you learn, I think. So this is like this is a proposal that the client is not very happy, because we are giving some meters, because we are making double high, and they had like 2 floors. But well, here's the proposal with this indoor swimming pool, and this curve typical from modernist forms, which we wanted to introduce in the space. And this is very important, because the actual sleeping room, how do you call it? Well, a master bedroom, yeah, okay. Like the distance were not okay. Like this distance here was not comfortable. Having those spaces, having this high in this window when you have the other ones, was like, no, this is not the good space for your bedroom. So we changed the place, that I explained before, and also like let's go for the high healing spaces with the high tall windows, and also again with the possibility of connecting the 2 spaces. And here again, the thing that we want all our house white, but we were sure that it was not a good option, and we thought like this was a lot better, like a lot cozy. And again, the decision of playing with the colors, which I think for you as interior design is an what I want to say is that for us, painting was not an issue at all. but now it is. Like, we think it's another thing you can count off when you're doing your design. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, you are allowed to ask any question you have for Mesura. I just wanted to say one thing before I pass the microphone. What you just said, I mean, this is something that you said you learned as architects from what you're not used to do during your career, and what we actually are very familiarized with, which is working with color. They have a special class, a special course, so they will work on colors. And yeah, it's the territory of interior designers traditionally. But I think, and I can see, and you are very, well, you're looking constantly on the internet, different firms and so on. You can see that more and more architects are going kind of back to what is more interior design, creating atmospheres in interiors of architecture. You know, and so I'm amused to see that that you found out by doing that there is something more than a white wall, and that could work well in an architectural concept that you create for this villa. So this is just a good thing to hear from an architect.
Well, not easy, I can tell you. Like colors, no. Like in the office, it was. It sounds ridiculous, but like thinking of this has to be this color, the other one. It was at the first time. It was like we were not feeling comfortable with that discussions.
Yes,
like,
I can imagine.
This should be like stone or wood, but never painting. And now,
yes, I can imagine. But the client is happy with the proposal.
No,
the client is not happy. Okay,
no,
then you have to do
yeah,
some work still. Okay. Some question, any question, anything you need to know about the projects, about them, about any technical things, whatever.
Is 5 a random number to start a firm with? Like, why 5 people? Were you all friends from school? Were you worried about working with that many people?
Well, to be honest, 5 has been like a super nice number because it's not a pair, so it makes decisions easier. And it's not 3, because 3, then when you get alone and the other 2, they make the decision, you feel like super uncomfortable. So at the end of the day, 5, it seems like a super wise number. We were close friends. We were playing football together. So this was the team in the beginning playing football. So this is the origin. We were asked many times that why are you starting like 5? So this is not a model. Maybe in the United States, these big firms, they are more used in having like partners. In Spain, normally you have the architect, the name of the studio is the name of the architect, and maybe you have like 2, but then you have both of their names in the studio. So it's quite unusual. But again, we're very happy about the result of working together. It's been like a step learning curve. So I'm encouraging, again, all of you to like throw yourself into a swimming pool and work in groups, work out of your comfort zone, because this is how you get enriched with other opinions.
And say all the bad things that you were talking about behind.
It's the first day. They're starting. They don't have doubts. They will have doubts at the end of the course, I guess. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. And yeah, we see you on Wednesday then. Okay, good night.
Thank you very much.